episode. Hello, Powerhouse Smart friends and colleagues. I am so excited for another episode of the Powerhouse Cool Collabs podcast. We created this podcast because I feel so fortunate in my life to have this incredible deep network of amazing leaders in luxury design, build, and real estate, especially our guest here today, where I feel like I can share their unique stories with all of you, our audience, where we talk about their story. And then we also get to share what's so important to all of us, having an attitude of gratitude, and how each one of these guests give back to help humanity. And so today, as in all of our episodes, this is commutable, so it's only 20 minutes, but I always like to give my guests as much time for them to share with us. So Melinda Jakovich LaGrange, my very dear friend, I'm so honored to have you here. I'm going to ask you to please share the microphone and tell us your story. Melinda, welcome.
Well, thank you, Wendy. I've known Wendy 25 years and adore her energy.
Thank you.
I mean that from my heart. My name is Melinda LaGrange, Melinda Jakovich LaGrange. I've been selling real estate for 31 years now.
Hard to believe.
Where did that go, Wendy?
I know. We've known each other for so long. And then as we jumped on this call, I saw all the building behind you, which I want you to chat about, and all the books and everything. And I know we were catching up about travel and France and all of that. But share with our audience just a little snippet of where you came from. And you have been an iconic broker in Chicago. That's how I met you actually so long ago. And then a speaker at our luxury conferences. You flew to Naples. We're an expert moderator. So we have deep roots together, but I want our audience to hear a little bit about where you came from and this trajectory of where you are today.
Well, I was born on the south side of Chicago, near the Beverly neighborhood. I went, and I still go back. I mean, I'm a very, very loyal person. And I tell my North Shore cousins, be proud of your South Side roots because we make presidents and now we make popes. So I kind of get a kick out of that. I initially started out working, I went to Northwestern, which was kind of unusual for a South Sider. If people did go to college, they either went to St. Mary's, Notre Dame, or U of I, but I headed north. But I worked in the securities business, worked on LaSalle Street at Chicago Corporation, and then I moved to Morgan Stanley. I always wanted to be a broker.
Wow.
And I did that for 12 years and I loved it. And I loved all the energy and I loved the board of trade and I loved all the badges of the day and the energy. But I always loved real estate also. But a lot of my friends were like, you're at Morgan Stanley. Why would you leave? Well, I ended up falling and needing back surgery. So I couldn't sit and watch the desks or the charts all day long. And that kind of motivated me to get in the business. It turned out to be the best move for me. It's my passion. And I'm a true believer that if you love what you do, it's never work.
That's so true.
And I didn't get married till later in life, and my families are like my they mean so much to me. Actually, Wendy and I have a mutual friend who I still keep in contact with, maybe not as much as I would like, but they are so dear to me, and I probably helped them move 4 or 5 times.
Right.
And that is, I think, the secret of real estate is really caring and being sincere, because people can see through all the phony baloney, as my father used to say. And it's been really very rewarding to me in my life. And I ended up, a lot of my friends are in real estate. My husband, I ended up meeting Lucien LaGrange in 2000. I was hired by Bob Mariano before anybody knew Bob, who he was, to sell a building for him. And he was going to have, the idea was to put a Harrods like on State and Randolph it was, and then to add 17 floors of a condominium building. And he hired me to do that. And that's where I met Lucien LaGrange. And we stayed friends, and then friends first. And then it kind of 15 years later, we ended up being together, and I've been married to Lucien, and we've been together for 15 years now. My husband is an architect. He's designed 33 buildings in Chicago. And that's kind of our mutual, it's kind of funny that when I first went to, he's from the south of France or Paris, but moved to the south. His values are very much like mine, and his love for Chicago is very similar. He can't leave, and I can't leave. It's
Mhm.
where my heart is. In Chicago, I think it's the greatest city. And I think, it gets a bad rap. Actually, someone had just asked me last night if I would ever consider being a PR person for the city of Chicago, because we need that right now. I mean,
Yes.
the people talk about the negative, but there's so more positive things about Chicago. And I speak at conferences, and at Compass, I get invited to the luxury conference in Aspen. And I used to talk about the drinking water situation. And a lot of the brokers we had a hard time after the COVID with the sales. And a lot of the brokers in Aspen, California, Arizona were talking about their, 50 million, $60 million transaction. And I said to them, well, one day you're going to look at Chicago because we have drinking water, and that's going to be a big thing. And they looked at me like I had altitude sickness. Well, guess what? They're calling me up.
Yes, so
No,
true, so true.
what?
Melinda, what makes you so iconic is that you started your real estate career. Of course, you understand how that all ties into investments and people's, nest eggs, of course. But you really weren't just, a real estate broker. You were like on the developer side. So all these developers for all these years now have come to you for the very important guidance on what's going to sell and what should we be doing here? What's the best fit? So talk a little bit about that.
Well, actually, when I worked on LaSalle Street, I left Chicago Corporation for a brief amount of time, and I worked with the real estate syndicator called Winthrop. And
Yes.
Winthrop raised $300 million, which was a lot of money in those days, in 2 days, for which is now a presidential towers.
Wow.
And I was 21, and I was talking to Dan Razankowski, who that's a name from the past, right?
Yes.
And I was talking to Mayor Byrne, and I was on the phone with all these executives. And now that's in the West Loop. There was absolutely nothing in that area. It was Skid Road. But I
Mm.
learned a lot about real estate syndication, and I was 21. And I always liked real estate for that reason. Uh, so that's kind of how my passion started in real estate, was working and seeing how deals start, from raising money to doing the deal to hiring the architect to meeting your alderman and getting it approved. A lot of times on new projects, the developer will aim really high and negotiate a building smaller, and it's all kind of the plan. And how much things cost to build. A project can take forever,
Right.
a decade by the time you see it from the architectural plans to the final result. And prices could have gone up, prices could have gone down. It's really, I find development so exciting. It's like my passion romance, but sometimes you get your heart broken.
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
Because,
because the length of time and
right,
all the moving parts, but it's like a three-dimensional puzzle, and you're so good at it. And what's not only do you understand the aspects of it, but you also have all the relationships,
right,
which is a part of what this Cool Collabs podcast is all about. Because not only do you really understand the value of your relationships, but you're such a connector, and then I just sit and talk to you for 15 minutes and I'm writing down all the, oh yeah, I got to reach out to that one and this one. You're just such a tremendous influencer in this world, in real estate development in Chicago, especially, and now outside of Chicago, right?
right. No, but I have to say, Chicago has my heart. A lot of people say we rented a place in Naples for 2 years, and Lucian just couldn't relate. He loves the city. Last night I co-chaired an event for the Joffrey Ballet. I've been on the board for 22 years.
Wow.
So that's
Yeah.
I used to have a nice relationship with Mr. Arpino. I even have a nicer one with Ashley. And we started women's night right after COVID, and we went from 20 people. And last night I had over 200.
Wow.
And
Wow.
that was really very successful. And I did that through, there's 3 ballets, and the ballet currently at Chicago is Alice in Wonderland, which if anybody, I mean, it's amazing. But even to see how the Joffrey has progressed, and we're so lucky because that ballet company, we have actually live music with it. And that's an additional $1 million to have that.
Wow.
And it's just amazing. Our symphony is top class. Our opera house is, you know, we have so much culture. The Art Institute of Chicago, the MCA, there's so much. And I do know the history. Actually, one of my favorite things about real estate is when a developer like 1000M was actually Lucy and I idea. Lucian said to the developer in 2012, you should buy this real estate. And Lucian competed, but the one developer had already an existing relationship with Helmut Jahn. But I am aware of the history of this building. It was supposed to be an Aziz Hadid building.
Wow.
Um, and she had spent a lot of money making plans, but that would have been kind of interesting to have a futuristic building on Michigan Avenue. And I helped name that area the Cultural Mile because that little area did not have a name. So
Wow.
from the river to Roosevelt, that's, you have a lot of museums and schools. And so I said, why don't we call it the Cultural Mile? And that is someone actually, I don't think I'll ever get credit for that, but I know that.
And now everybody in our audience knows
Yeah.
that.
But I get asked to introduce people, give them tours of Chicago to invest. Even the
Yes.
French consulate, or Lucien just designed a building for RIU, and I have a really nice relationship with their Spanish company. They paid cash for their hotel. I mean, people in the hotel from New York. I have such a love of Chicago, and it really kind of comes through.
Yeah.
And I'm really honored, and I do that. That's kind of part of my volunteer work too, is to educate people on Chicago and tell them the positive things, you know. We have
I
such
love
great
that.
neighborhoods. We have what, 76 neighborhoods in Chicago.
Wow.
And from the
Wow.
north side to the south side, they vary so much, but you have your different communities, your churches, your synagogues, your schools. We have great schools. I mean, one of the best schools in Chicago for undergrad is Walter Payton, and it's a public
Yes, my
school.
daughter lives down the street and
Yeah,
I see that every day. The kids get in and yeah, what a great school.
no, it is a great school. So, and even Ogden, my girlfriend lived on Delaware, and her 2 children went to Ogden, and they ended up going to Harvard, and one went to Northwestern. So don't ever underestimate the value of a Chicago public school education. There's
Absolutely.
great, great opportunities. And I think that's the people, and everyone always says the people are so nice in Chicago. They're so surprised.
We are. We're good people. We're grounded Midwesterners. So
Yeah.
one of the other things I always like to, tap into, especially someone like you who's got this wealth of knowledge, is how you tie in or weave in, giving back and helping humanity. I mean, you've got, you're involved with the Joffrey, which I love, what you've done for the 22 years. But tell us about some other. I know you've done so many, so you're probably going to have to pick just your favorites.
Well, I helped start a inner dance camp, Forward Momentum, and they just celebrated their 10th anniversary, and they've done incredibly well. I mean, the After School Matters is involved with them now, and what not only people would say dance, like in Inglewood, children don't dance, but people forget in some of these neighborhoods after the school year's over, these children get lunch provided at the school. So this dance camp actually, other than teaching them confidence through dancing, it also feeds them and then
Yeah.
takes them on field trips and introduces them to things that they might not have had the opportunity to. So that's one of my dear passions. I'm on the Service Club. The Service Club is one of the largest, oldest organizations. And it's with sort of the high society women, but what we do is we raise all these lunches and events we have, and at the end of the year, we spend all our money in like to 20 or 30 charities and underwrite what they might need: a bus, they might need a computer, they might need food. I mean, it's just they have to write a story and we underwrite their dreams. So I think that's a wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, you could go on with Ronald McDonald and all. things. So the group that's watching this, the viewers that are watching this, are probably thinking out how, if Melinda's open to us contacting her, what can we do to, reciprocate and help Melinda? But is she interested in mentoring, or how can I tap into, her wisdom? So any guidance you want to give our viewers as far as, because what's going to happen here, Melinda, when we're done is I'm going to do the title and the description of our short call today to share what everyone can learn about you. But I'm going to have all your contact information, and I want to make sure you tell us what would be the best way and the purpose for people to reach out.
Well, I'm still old school. Actually, I was just complimented. The Ruttenberg family had asked me, their daughter, granddaughter, would
Yeah.
like to get in real estate. She's currently lives in LA. So I met her for coffee, and I was real. I mean, the Ruttenberg family's been in the business for over 100 years. I used to represent Jeff, and I did sold the first development in the West Loop, CA Development. They owned Belgravia, but I was so touched that I could, I met her for coffee, and I like to meet people one-on-one a lot of times. If Zoom's a great. I don't know how we would have gotten through COVID without Zoom. I
Yeah.
mean, the reach that you could have, but I think looking at someone's eyes, even if it's a Zoom, is so important. And I do still believe in the phone, because I think a lot of times people negotiate and they're texting each other and you don't feel the heart and soul of the deal. You could
Yeah.
say, "Oh, my client is 500,000." And maybe you just kind of share things. And I can't believe that I never wanted a big team, because I think my value, people hire me, but I can like share a story that really can make someone feel the passion of that piece of property. I remember selling Liz Fair a house, and it was a house in Lincoln Park. Here it didn't even have parking. But my story, she said, I bought this house because there was a little reading nook. And I said, my client loved to read books in this nook, and it was just always with a glass of wine. And she thought to herself, this is where I'm going to write my music. And she
Oh,
realized it didn't have parking, and she had to carry her drums and things across the street. But she was like, I never regretted buying that house, because that nook, I don't know what song she ended up um,
wow.
writing from that nook, but that's why. And I don't think a realtor opening up the door, or especially a lockbox, would have ever relayed like some of the beauties of a house. Every house has an energy. And
Yes.
I think that's why we'll never be replaced by AI. Or video only. I think you have to see the house, feel the energy, the light, and the location is always important.
Of course, of course. So the viewers that you're watching this, you've heard it here that you
Oh,
can reach out to Melinda, and she loves mentoring. She loves sharing. I wanted to make a suggestion that we could schedule a podcast with my audience that want to meet you and get to know you. And then this way you can be sitting in your beautiful Chicago condo and sharing without, we could do it often without tapping too much on your time and energy. But so that would be great. And there's so much and of course, we're going to have you continue as a speaker for all our
no,
conferences.
I absolutely love your organization. I love speaking at Powerhouse. The energy, actually, I had a girlfriend who lived in Naples and she joined, and she has been bragging about it. She herself started a foundation. She lost her son to cancer, and
Oh,
she's been bare necessities, but she was like, this woman's dynamite, and everyone is so nice here, and they share. Real estate can be a tough business. Lucian says, I think I can't believe you've done so well. You're a nice person. I said, well, some people don't have to know that. No, that's not true. I mean, I always thank you. I have to say, since I've been with Lucy, and I feel like I have a little edge on, I feel like I got an MBA on designing, and he too, you don't necessarily be an architect to be rich. It's all about passion and caring, and a house, and the floor plan and all the lighting and the design of a house can really make a difference.
oh, totally. I
And that
agree.
was, really very important, and I got to meet so many developers. He worked with Gary Barnett of Extel, who's the number one. This is interesting. He's the number one developer. I think he's actually bigger than Relate. I mean, Related's huge, but in New York, there's a book called Kings of New York. Lucian, I want you to know this is just like an eighth of the books, and he's read every one of them.
Wow. And those are all architecture books?
This section is, and then we have a cowboy section over there, cookbooks over there. But I mean, all these books are just amazing, and it's a source. Like Louis Sullivan happens to be one of his favorite architects, and he lived in a Louis Sullivan house. Louis Sullivan didn't design that many single family homes, but when he came here from McGill, from Montreal, his mentors were Bruce Graham and Faisal Khan, who designed the Sears Tower, and he was there at the cigarette story. I don't know if anyone ever heard that, where Bruce Graham had cigarettes and he went like this, and he had the towers, and that's how the Sears Tower
got to be stacked.
Right.
Wow.
So
wow.
that was, I mean, there's so many great stories about Chicago, but this is amazing. And then over here, this is one of his buildings. He doesn't, but that's the Ritz-Carlton residence, which I love it because that's where I would like to live. One of his buildings. We have to move in one of his buildings, but I really love that building. I like Art Deco. I do like Art Deco.
I do too. Beautiful.
That's.
Well, Melinda, I wish we could spend more time. I wish we had more time, but I always like to end with a question, and I know you'll answer. You haven't heard this question yet, so you'll be thinking and come out with something beautiful for our audience here. But when all is said and done, like you said, it's not about how much money you've accumulated, your wealth. It's about this, living life at, with the highest level of gratitude and the energy.
Integrity.
Integrity. So what would your answer be when I ask the question of what is the definition of a well-lived life?
I think friendships and love. And if you haven't loved, you don't have to have 100 friends, but if you have a handful of good friends, I think that if you are respected in your profession, and people know that you're a person of your word, I think that's really important. I think traveling, you learn from other people, and not to be judgmental, because some people, everyone has a story. Let people tell their story, and I think if you listen to their story, you'll really become very wise.
I love that. That is beautiful. That's perfect. And I'm going to take that with me for the entire weekend and spread that message out. And of course, this podcast will be able to share that with many more people than I'll actually physically see face to face. But Melinda, talk about a well-lived life, and you still have many more moons to go here. You are a very special friend, and you do care so much, and it's so obvious, and you're so genuine and so authentic, and I'm so blessed to have you in my life. And thank you.
And the feeling's mutual from the bottom of my heart. And everyone who knows Wendy's a lucky person.
Oh, everyone who knows Melinda is got a gift, right? So namaste, my girlfriend. Wishing you great health and happiness this weekend. We'll be seeing each other very soon. Give Lucine a kiss for us. And thank you again.
To you.
To you.
Bye.
Bye.